Hello, friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I step out of the cruiser into the chill of the night. The rain has eased to a gentle patter on my coat. My boots sink into the soft gravel, each step a small crunch against the dark hush. There's no one else for miles. No glow from porches, no hum of distant traffic, just me and the road and the endless stretch of trees on either side. I killed the engine and killed the lights. The sudden darkness is total. My radio crackles once, then falls silent. I breathe in, taste damp earth and oil on my tongue. I tug the brim of my hat down, lean on the cruiser's hood. My flashlight lies heavy in my hand. The call had come in 20 minutes ago. "Car parked on shoulder," dispatch said. "Lights on." No one in sight. Standard check, routine stop. But on County Road 27, nothing is routine, not anymore. I glance back down the road. No headlights, no movement. Only the faint shape of the cruiser's red taillights shrinking into the night behind me, as if someone reached out and snuffed them. I set my jaw and walk toward the tree line. Rain drips off low branches, forming a curtain of beads that shimmer in the beam. The forest smells of moss, rot, and something darker I can't name. I click my tongue. Quiet, too quiet. No frogs, no crickets, no rustle of small creatures scattering at my approach. Even the wind seems to be holding its breath. My light finds the car about 30 yards ahead. A silver sedan, I think. The hood is closed. No hazard lights flashing. The driver's side door is shut. Engine off. I sweep my beam inside, empty. Keys in the console. No sign of struggle. No blood. No broken glass. The radio crackles again. "Unit 12, are you on location?" Dispatch asks. "Copy. Front shoulder, northbound side," I reply, voice flat. I crouch by the driver's door and press my ear against the metal. No sound. I pop the lock, open the door. The interior light flickers to life. Nothing but an empty seat, damp upholstery, a discarded soda can rolling under the passenger side. I step back, my boot catching on a rock, sending a sharp crack through the silence. For a second, I think I hear breathing. But it's just my own heart, hammering against ribs like it wants out. I stand tall, sweep the flashlight across the clearing between road and trees. Shadows leap and twist. I find nothing. I swallow, wipe rain from my brow. I switch off the interior light with a click on the console. I don't want to leave any trace of my arrival. A flashlight. My heartbeat slows. A figure stands at the tree line. Tall, still, watching. The beam catches the brim of his hat. I keep the light low. I don't want to scare him. I clear my throat. "Sheriff's Department." My voice sounds hollow. "You okay?" He steps forward, arms at his sides. He doesn't smile. He doesn't speak. He just stands there, his gaze fixed on the woods behind me. I pivot, aim the light where he looks. Thick trunks, gnarled roots, wet leaves clinging to branches. "Sir," I say, "are you lost?" He shakes his head once, slow. He turns fully toward me, but he doesn't move his feet. The rain runs down the peak of his cap. I can't make out his eyes, only the shadow of his face. "Do you need help?" I keep it simple, keep it calm, keep the radio in my pocket, silent. He lifts one hand and points into the forest. Not a wave, not an invitation. Just a still finger that trembles like a leaf. His finger is aimed between two trees, at a spot where my light doesn't reach. I glance at the road, then at the trees, then back to him. "What do you see?" He doesn't lower his hand. He tilts his head, listening. I catch a flicker. He raises his free hand to his ear, as if straining to hear something. A whisper on the wind, a footstep in the underbrush. I take a step closer, flashlight sweeping the ground. Leaves, twigs, nothing. I step again. Gravel crunches underfoot. He starts walking forward into the trees. The way he moves is deliberate, calm, unhurried, as if he's marching to a familiar tune no one else can hear. "Sir," I snap. I break from the cruiser in 2 strides. My beam follows him, closing the gap. I raise the light high. He's chest-deep in shadow now, moving between trunks. The beam catches the sleeve of his jacket, slick with rain. "Stop!" I shout. "Come back!" He slows. I am less than 20 feet behind him. I can see the set of his shoulders, the way his neck strains. I can almost make out his jaw. But then he ducks behind a large oak. I dash to the tree, flashlight bobbing. He's gone. No trace, no footprints in the mud, no crushed leaves marking a path. The beam finds nothing, just the wet bark and dark undergrowth. I twist around, light skittering over mossy logs, dense brush. Only the rattling branches high above. A squirrel maybe, disturbed, but no man. My pulse is a drum in my ears. I spit out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I tap the tree trunk with my left hand, wet, solid, reassuring. I call into the darkness, "This is Sheriff Dalton." Step into the light. No answer. I stare at the empty black. Then the car lights catch my eye. Through the trees, I glimpse the sedan's taillights. Still on, still waiting, like nothing happened. I back out of the woods, dropping my flashlight beam on the undergrowth as I go. My boots churn through mud. My coat soaks up water. Every sense pricks. The scent of damp earth, the taste of cold on my tongue, the burning ache in my chest. At the car, I shine my light in the rear window. No one there. I open the door again, still empty. The seatbelt lays buckled across the passenger side. The radio in the dashboard is silent. I close the door and lock it. I tap my radio amid the click of wet leather. "Dispatch, get backup. I need units here now." My voice is low but firm. I look back toward the trees. Rain falls in invisible sheets. I can almost pretend I saw nothing but the woods and the car, but I know what I saw. A man, alive, steady, willing to walk away, and then gone. I lean on the hood, sliding down until my back hits the cold metal. I cup my hands around the beam, pointing it at my chest. My chest heaves. I rest my head against the roof. My eyes burn. Minutes pass. I don't move. The rain washes over me. The patrol cars arrive behind, lights flashing through the trees. Voices crackle over the radio. They call out names and numbers. I raise one hand, wave them off. They pause. They shine lights at me, at the car, into the woods. I swallow and shake my head. "No tracks," I say. "Nothing." They fan out with their lights, search the underbrush. I stand. My knees feel weak. I scoop up my hat from the hood, wipe rain from the brim. I slip it on and step back. I watch them work, but I see only the dark line where the trees meet the road. I know they won't find him. I know he's already gone. And I know I'm the only one who ever really saw him. I stare at the empty tree line and whisper a promise. "I'll find you." Yet, even as I speak, I know it's a promise I can't keep. The rain picks up again, cold droplets tapping like fingers on a coffin lid. I close my eyes, lean harder on the cruiser. My radio crackles. A voice calls out that they've scoured a half-mile radius. No sign. Back at headquarters, they'll call it a runaway, a lost driver who panicked. I'll file the report, write it up, close it out, but I won't believe it. Not now, not ever. I lift my face to the sky, let the rain wash down my cheeks. I stand there until every patrol car is gone, and then I drive away, headlights cutting black into night, leaving behind the silence and the secret of what I saw. I keep that night in my pocket, like a stone, heavy and cold, and I still wake up hearing the creak of that oak tree. Still half expect to see a hat in the tree line, a face peering back at me. But there's only dark, only the memory of a man who walked into shadow, and I couldn't follow. I step out of the cruiser into the chill of the night. The rain has eased to a gentle patter on my coat. My boots sink into the soft gravel, each step a small crunch against the dark hush. There's no one else for miles, no glow from porches, no hum of distant traffic, just me and the road, and the endless stretch of trees on either side. I kill the engine and kill the lights. The sudden darkness is total. My radio crackles once, then falls silent. I breathe in, taste damp earth and oil on my tongue. I tug the brim of my hat down, lean on the cruiser's hood. My flashlight lies heavy in my hand, its weight a reminder that I chose to come out here. The call was routine. A sedan parked on the shoulder with its lights still on. Dispatch gave me coordinates and a note. No one in sight. Out here, routine becomes a gamble. I set my jaw and walk toward the tree line. Rain drips off low branches, forming a curtain of beads that shimmer in the beam. The forest smells of moss, rot, and something darker I can't name. My light cuts a narrow path, revealing tree trunks glistening black. I click my tongue, too quiet. No frogs, no crickets, not even the rustle of a squirrel. It's like the world paused, waiting. The car stands 30 yards ahead. Silver sedan, hood closed, no hazard lights flashing. Engine off. I sweep my beam inside, empty. Keys in the console, no sign of struggle, no blood, no broken glass. The radio crackles again. Unit 12, are you on location? Dispatch asks. Copy, I answer. Front shoulder northbound. My voice feels shallow in the void. I crouch by the driver's door, place my ear against the cold metal. Nothing. I twist the handle and pull it open. The interior light flickers. Empty seat, damp upholstery. A half-drunk soda can rolling under the passenger side. I step back. My boot catches on a rock, sending a sharp crack through the quiet. My heart jags. For a moment I hear breathing, but it's just my own, loud in the night. I scan the clearing. My flashlight beam passes over wet leaves, gnarled roots, broken bits of bark. Nothing moves. I wipe rain off my brow. I don't leave tracks, I tell myself. I don't want to leave my prints here, drawing attention. I switch off the interior light, and the car goes completely dark. A figure stands at the tree line, tall, still, watching. I keep the beam low, not to startle him. I clear my throat. Sheriff's Department. My voice sounds small. He steps forward, arms at his sides. He doesn't smile. He doesn't speak. He just stands there, his gaze fixed where my light doesn't reach. The brim of his hat catches the beam. Rain runs down the peak. Sir, I say, are you lost? He shakes his head once, slow. He turns fully toward me, but doesn't move his feet. I see the outline of his jacket, water beating on the shoulders. His breath puffs in faint clouds. Can I help you? I keep it calm, simple, no sudden moves. He lifts one hand, points into the forest, a single finger trembling. Not a question, not a plea, a statement. He's pointing at a spot I can't see. The beam doesn't reach that far. I glance at the road, then at the woods, then back to him. What do you see? He tilts his head, listening. He brings his other hand to his ear. He's straining to hear something. A whisper on the wind, a footstep under the underbrush. I take a step closer, jamming my light into the trees. Twisted trunks rise like sentinels. Wet leaves cling to branches. The beam finds dropped pine needles and patches of soft moss. No footprints, no sign of disturbance. He starts walking forward, into the trees. His pace is steady, unhurried, like he's following a path only he knows. Each step silent. No crack of stick, no rustle of leaves, nothing. "Sir?" I shout. I break into a run. Gravel sprays under my boots. My flashlight bobs, catching his jacket, slick with rain. Then the dark space between two trees. He's gone. I skid to the oak where he vanished. My light cuts through branches and tangled roots. Nothing but wet bark and undergrowth. I call out, twice, 3 times. My voice rolls between trunks, then dies. No answer. My chest hammers. I squat, press my flashlight against the tree. The beam pools at my feet. I catch sight of a broken branch, fresh, like someone pushed past it, but no footprints. The mud is smooth, as if never stepped on. I stand. My knees feel weak. I check my radio. "Dispatch, need backup." I'm at the location. My voice cracks. Sirens wail in the distance, grow louder, then fade again as patrol cars roll onto the shoulder. Their lights flash, red and blue, slices through the trees. Voices drift across the rain. They join me, guns holstered, flashlights in hand. They fan out, calling into the dark. I stay pinned to the oak, flashlight sweeping the underbrush. Every shadow looks like movement. Every distant sound my name being called. The search goes on for 40 minutes. No footprints. No broken branches past that oak. No echo of a rifle shot. Nothing. Eventually they call it off. No sign of the man. His car still parked where I left it. Lights off. Engine cold. I walk back alone. Rain soaks my coat through. Gravel crunches under my boots. I climb into the cruiser, leave the door ajar for backup to see I'm rattled. My hands tremble as I close the door. The seatbelt catches on my hip. I yank it free and lean over the wheel. The cruiser's interior smells of damp leather and my own sweat. My radio crackles. All units clear. No sign. We're pulling back to HQ. I switch off my light. The dashboard glows faintly. I lean my forehead on the wheel, close my eyes. I taste the night, metallic and cold. Memories wash in. Emma Ree, her car with a flat tire, her body found miles in the woods. Paul Mercer, standing by his rental, turning to the dark. College kid, obeying some instinct to walk away instead of staying. None of it made sense. Not then, not now. I call dispatch. I'm good, heading back. I kill the engine. I sit for a long time, listening to rain on the roof. My heartbeat settles. I force myself to start the car, flip on the headlights, and drive slowly past the spot where he stood. Nothing there, just trees and shadows. I head back to the station. I'll type up my report. Describe a missing driver, possible runaway, no proof of foul play, no conclusive evidence. I'll call it what they expect, an unexplained disappearance. I'll file and close it, and I'll carry the rest in my head, locked behind my eyes. Under the streetlights of town, my cruiser's wipers squeak against the glass. I pass empty storefronts and dim porches. The world is asleep. No one knows what I just saw. No one needs to know. I slip into my office. The coffee pot drips. I pour a cup, black, bitter. I sit at my desk under fluorescent lights, feeling their harsh glare on wet skin. I open a new report. My fingers hover over keys. I think about that man in the trees, calm, waiting, listening to something we can't hear, and then gone as if swallowed by air. I close my eyes for a second. I remember the feel of cold bark under my palm. the silence so thick it pressed against my ears, the hollow ache in my chest. I start typing. At approximately 00:45 hours, responded to report a vehicle on County Road 27. My hands move. My heart still pounds. I will write these words, and then I will move on, but I will never forget where I stood or what I couldn't stop. I set the cup down and lean back. Outside my window, the world is quiet. Only the street lamp's yellow glow on wet pavement. Only the memory of a man who walked silently into shadow and vanished without a trace. I close the report. I leave the office. The corridor lights flicker once as I pass. I push open the front door, step into the cold night air. I pull my hat down and look back at the station, its windows dark. Then I walk toward home, one foot after the other, the rain washing the gravel roads clean. My soul still feels muddy. Standing in my front yard, I watch the station's dull glow fade behind me. My wife's porch light clicks off, a timed fixture, not a welcome. I pull my jacket tighter and start the walk up our drive. Gravel crunches underfoot, but I barely hear it. My mind's still back on the shoulder of County Road 27, where a man stood and then vanished. The wind tugs at the collar of my coat. I pass the old oak by the mailbox, the one I planted years ago after my daughter's birth. Its branches brush over my head like a hand reaching out. I shiver, though it's not cold enough. I force my legs to keep moving. Inside, the house is dark and silent. I ease the door open, setting my boots on the mat and dropping my hat on the hallway table. I flick on a small lamp. Its glow feels intrusive. I linger in the foyer, coat half on, staring at the empty living room. The coffee table holds last night's newspapers, a mug still damp from cold coffee, half-finished crossword puzzles. I shrug off the coat and hang it. My hands tremble just a little. I walk to the kitchen, fill a glass of water, and sip. I taste metal and something bitter, fear or memory. I lower myself to the table and rest my elbows on the wood. The water warms my throat but doesn't reach the tightness in my chest. My phone buzzes in my pocket. A text from dispatch. Vehicle was a local. No record of ownership change. Case closed as missing person on report. I tap back, copy. Then I flip it face down. I don't want to read their shorthand. Not tonight. I push back from the table and pace to the window. I look out at the empty street illuminated by a single lamp. The world seems asleep, safe. I force a deep breath, let it out slow. I walk to my bedroom, strip off uniform shirt, and toss it on a chair. The faded sheriff's badge creases against my thigh as I unbuckle my belt. I hang pants next to the shirt, both drenched with rain and dusk. I step into sweatpants and a t-shirt and flop onto the bed. I stare at the ceiling fan, its blades stagnant in the quiet air. My mind whirs. The man's back turned, stepping between two oaks, the sudden halt of wind in the woods, the way his boots never seemed to sink into mud. I close my eyes and their image blurs behind my eyelids. I roll onto my side, hug a pillow, and count breaths. 5, 6. The wood floorboard outside the room creaks. I freeze. Footsteps? Or the house settling? No, my daughter's memory, her small frame on the stairs, 2 years old, peanut butter in her hair, whispering, "Daddy?" I sit up. The stillness is complete. No child's voice, no footsteps. I rise, cross the hall, and flick on her nightlight. It bathes her empty room in soft orange. Teddy bears stare from the shelf. My wedding photo on the desk looks back at me. Smiling faces I can't feel right now. I step into the hallway and stand. Water drips from my hair onto my uniform still hanging. I swallow. The house is empty, yet I feel watched, not by a person, but by memories, each one a ghost demanding attention. I return to my room. I check the clock, 1:17 a.m., far too late, but sleep eludes me. I reach for my journal on the nightstand and flip it open. I find today's entry half written. Found a car on 27, no one inside. Then I saw him, pointing into the woods. He walked away, no footprints, no trace. I pause. The pen hovers. I scribble. I am the only one who saw him. I am the only one who can tell the story. My handwriting trembles. I close the journal and set it aside. I pull the covers up and lie down, staring at the pen and notebook like lifelines. I realize I'm terrified. Not of the dark, not of the woods, of forgetting. Of waking up without the memory, without proof that I saw a man step into a forest and vanish from the world. I press my forehead against my pillow. My breath catches as I imagine that oak, its limbs arching like a gateway. I imagine the ground opening, swallowing him whole. I imagine his final look. Did he know? Was he expecting it? I turn onto my back. The ceiling fan looms overhead, unmoving. My chest tightens. I squeeze my eyes shut. I picture the two oaks he slipped between, their trunks slick with rain, their roots knotted like fingers. I hear nothing but my own pulse and the distant drip of water somewhere in the house. I drift, but not entirely. Dreams rest at the edge of sleep. Raindrops echoing like footsteps. A distant flashlight bobbing between trees. A hat appearing and disappearing. I fight it down, force myself awake. Then, nearly dawn, I slip into half-sleep. I feel the bed depressed beside me, like someone settled in silently. I jolt upright. The space is empty. My heart pounds. I rub my eyes. Empty room, just shadows. I lie back. The thought emerges unbidden. I've never heard a human step through that floorboard outside my room. But I've heard all the missing walk across these woods. I've heard them call. Sleep finally comes. It's shallow, fragmented. I dream of standing on the road again, flashlight in hand, rain washing over me. A man in a hat waits. He turns and says nothing. His mouth moves, yet no sound comes. Then he vanishes. I wake with a start. My shirt clings to sweat. Outside, gray light seeps under the blinds. My phone alarm buzzes. 0400 hours. I sit on the edge of the bed, stare at my hands. I stand, dress, and head to the station. No coffee. I don't need it. My mind is sharp in that pre-dawn haze. I drive in silence. Rural roads lined with pines and empty fields. My headlights catch low mist hanging over a creek. At the station, I step into the briefing room. Deputies file in, yawning, trading small talk. I nod, unfold my coat, and hang it on the rack. I join them at the table, pull out my journal, wait. The sheriff's weekly meeting begins. They talk budgets, patrol routes, community events. I nod along, but my eyes drift to the window. I see a grove of oaks in the distance. They look harmless in daylight, no shadows, no whispers. Mid-morning, I slip away. I drive to that spot where the sedan waited, where he pointed. I park in the same place, kill the engine. I step out. The sun is weak, but it penetrates the canopy. Leaves glimmer green. I press my foot on the gravel shoulder. No crunch this time. Someone's passed through, packing it down. I stride to the tree line. Ground is dry. Grass flattened in places. I swing my flashlight out of habit but never turn it on. I step past the edge. Roots twist underfoot. I breathe the scent of pine and damp earth. I recall his jacket, the brim of his hat, the way he paused, listening. I scan the shadows between trees. All are gone in daylight. No secret paths, no hidden glens. I stand still. I close my eyes. I try to hear what he heard. The rustle of a small animal, a distant creak, the whisper of wind through leaves, just nature's soundtrack. I open my eyes. Nothing. I turn and walk back. My boots stir dust instead of mud. The car waits like an empty promise. I open the door, sit behind the wheel, no engine, no heat. I lean back, hands gripping the steering wheel rim. I settle my jaw and start the engine. The cruiser hums to life. I turn onto the road, head for home. I glance in the rearview mirror. Oak trees fade into the background. I blink. I ask myself, did I chase a ghost? Or did I let one go? I exhale slowly. The morning sun warms the windshield. I keep driving, but my mind stays on that spot, wondering what drew him. What calls out in those woods at midnight? I drive on. Silence surrounds me, but I still listen for a footstep, a whisper, a plea. I drive until the road curves away and the trees close in again. There, the world falls silent. I slow to 20 miles per hour, headlights bright. I see nothing, yet I feel watched. I press the accelerator a little harder, hoping to outpace the silence. But it clings to me, tagging along like a shadow. I remind myself, stay alert, stay calm, keep the radio on, keep the lights bright. I tell myself, you're the deputy, you protect people. But I know, out here you're never safe. Not on County Road 27, and you can't protect someone who walks willingly into the dark. I speed away from the curve where the woods close in. My knuckles whiten on the wheel. The silence behind me feels heavy, as if it presses through the glass and settles on my shoulders. I don't slow down until the dark pines give way to farms and fences. The gravel turns to pavement. I cut the cruiser's engine at home and sit for a moment. No patrol calls, no radio traffic, nothing but my own ragged breathing and the hum of cicadas rising in the night air. Inside, I move without thinking. My fingers flick on the lamp next to my desk. The sheriff's reports lay in neat stacks. I sort through them by year, by name, by date. Emma Ree, June 2003. Paul Mercer, July 2003. Michael Thornton, February 2004. Jack Harmon, March 2004. Then names I've never heard before. Decades passed. I pull the oldest file, dated 1974. A young logger found deep in the woods, no car ever recovered. The report calls it misadventure. I stare at the typewritten lines, see the same pattern. Vehicle abandons, victim wanders. No trace of violence, no footprints to follow. I close the drawer and head outside. The porch light casts long shadows over the yard. I sit on the stoop, journal in hand. I flip to a blank page. The pen hovers. I write. They all walked away. They all disappeared into the forest. I watched one do it. I pause. The words feel inadequate. I write more. I know what happened, but I can't explain it. Not to anyone. A breeze rustles the leaves above. It sounds like distant voices. Or maybe that's just my mind playing tricks. I set the journal aside and walk to the mailbox at the end of the drive. Inside is a stack of mail. A bill, a promotional leaflet, a letter from the county board approving cameras on other roads. No one mentions County Road 27. They've moved on. I slip back inside and lock the door. I pour a glass of whiskey from the decanter on the kitchen counter. I take a slow sip. The burn in my throat reminds me I'm alive. I pour another. I stand by the window, watch the moon shimmer on the dark roof of the station across the street. My reflection stares back. Tired eyes, tight jaw, unshaven stubble. I lift the glass to my lips again. Memories come unbidden. That man standing under broken branches. The way his shoulders relaxed when he walked, like he belonged. How he vanished behind that oak without a sound. I press my palm to the glass. The whiskey drips down my fingers. I blink until the room stops spinning. I finish the glass and set it down. I slip into my boots and jacket again. I need to be out there. Need to see the road at dawn. Need to feel the cold breeze that shakes loose liquid thoughts from my mind. I drive back to County Road 27 before sunrise. The horizon lightens in pale gray. The trees look less ominous. Their leaves drop dew on the cruiser's hood. I park at the familiar spot, kill the engine, and step into the chill. My flashlight is in the passenger seat. I leave it there. Daylight requires no beam, only eyes tuned to detail. I walk to the edge of the clearing. Grass flattened in weird patterns. A few broken twigs, likely from yesterday's search. No fresh tracks. I run my fingers over the moss at the base of that oak. It's cold and spongy, but shows no sign of disturbance. I press my ear to the bark. I hear nothing but the breeze. I move deeper, following an imaginary path the man might have taken. The forest floor is littered with needles and pine cones. I kick aside a rotted log. Nothing. I pause and look back at the road. The county board's new speed limit sign glints in the dawn. 70 miles per hour. No warning, no closure, no signs about missing persons. I close my eyes and inhale just once. I sense movement behind me, a flicker of shadow beyond the tree line. I spin around, heart pounding. The clearing is empty, no figure, no fallen branch, nothing. I stand for a long moment, searching foam of trees for anything resembling his jacket or hat. I walk back to the cruiser and climb in. My phone buzzes, dispatch checking on me. I text back, all clear, no sign of vehicle. Then I delete the text. They don't need details, they'll never know what I saw. I drive home alone. I catch brief shivers in the sunrise. I pass silent farms and empty road signs. I reach my driveway and kill the engine. The house is dark again, my family still sleeps. I stare at the windshield, half expecting to see a figure reflected there. Nothing. Inside, I make coffee. I open the blinds to let morning in. I sit at the kitchen table, journal out, pen ready. I write, I'm going back at midnight. I need to be there. I underline it twice. I glance at the clock. It's 7:15. Too early for anything but coffee and regret. I head back upstairs to shower and change for the day. The hot water washes off sweat and whiskey, but not the images. The cold of those woods remains under my skin. At breakfast, my daughter bounds in, yawning. She hugs me, her hair's tangled. She asks what's for dinner. I force a smile and say, lasagna. My wife asks if I'm okay. I nod. She doesn't press. I carry my plate to the table and eat in silence, fighting the urge to sneeze out the whistle of wind from the pines. I drive to the station for day shift. I process paperwork, talk to colleagues about routine matters, but my mind drifts to midnight, to shadows shifting between trees, to the faint echo of his footstep. I sign off on logs. I file the report on yesterday's call. I label it unoccupied vehicle under follow-up pending. No one ever follows up. I glance at the clock, 5 p.m., time to go home, but also time to prepare. I pack gear, extra batteries, rain gear, snacks, journal, pen. I leave my uniform shirt hanging. I slip into plain clothes beneath my coat. Tonight, I'm not acting as sheriff's deputy. I'm just a man looking for answers. Evening comes early under overcast skies. I slip out of the house again, leaving no note. My wife will worry, my daughter will ask. I don't stop. I drive straight to County Road 27. 14th time this week. I park, kill the engine, step out. The forest welcomes me like an old friend. The rain starts again. Light flurries on my face. I slip on the hat I carried from the cruiser. My breath forms clouds between trees. I take a deep breath. I step toward the tree line. I step from the open road into the forest, boots sinking slightly into the wet earth. The rain is steady, tiny nails tapping on the brim of my hat. I leave the flashlight in my jacket pocket. Tonight, I need to rely on my own senses. I pause at the tree line, chest tight, listening. The world is muffled by wet leaves and falling water. No wind, no bird song. Only the tide of rain and my heartbeat. I move forward, one hand brushing trunks as I go. Moss clings to bark beneath my fingertips. My breath clouds in front of me, mingling with mist. Every footfall is measured, deliberate, careful not to wrench a twig from its place. I'm tracing the path I saw him take, the invisible track no one else can follow. Night presses in. My eyes adjust, shapes emerge. Fallen logs, stumps, a swampy patch where shallow water pools. I skirt it, stepping onto higher ground, my pant legs brushing wet ferns. Somewhere ahead, the ground drops off. A ravine, perhaps, or a dry creek bed. I feel it before I see it, a hollow murmur of water under leaves. I pause, hand on tree. I remember his finger pointing, arms stiff. He walked here, between two great oaks, toward this low gully. I trace a line with my eyes from road to ravine, imagining the angle he must have taken in the dark. I take one step, and my boot breaks through a thin crust of leaves into cold mud. I catch my balance, blinking. A single set of footprints leads down the slope, small, narrow prints. I press my palm to the ground. Mud clings to my skin. I trace the prints. They vanish halfway down the hill, as if whoever made them lifted legs high, stepping on air. My pulse hammers. I draw in a ragged breath and follow them. The slope is steep and slick. I slide twice before reaching the bottom. I shine the dim glow of my phone screen on the mud. No prints beyond. Just smooth earth, no disturbance. My light illuminates ferns draped over what looks like a shallow depression. I kneel, part the fronds. The ground rises slightly, forming a low mound like an unmarked grave. I swallow, feeling the old fear twist in my gut. I place fingers on the mound. It's soft, spongy. No leaves cover it. Fresh earth? I bang my fist lightly. The hollow thunk echoes. Beneath the earth, something hollow, empty, but the mound isn't grave deep, just a shallow dip in the earth. My radio crackles. Deputy, any update? It's dispatch. I hesitate, then speak. I found something. Coordinates. I squint at the GPS app on my phone. 0.6 miles from road, there's a mound, footprints end here. Backup is 3 minutes out. I end the call. I pack my phone away, my hands trembling. The rain soaked through my coat, but now I feel a cold deeper than water. I lean over the mound, heart pounding. I drop to one knee and clear moss from the top. Soil clings in my fingers. Clay and organic matter. No sign of cloth or debris. It's earth. Pure, undisturbed except for a light heap. I close my eyes. I imagine him here, stepping onto the mound, then vanishing into the ground itself. My mind fights it. Impossible. So I scrape more soil, search for disturbed grass, torn roots, but nothing. It's as if someone scooped leaves aside, tapped a spot to create a slight rise, then moved on. I rise to my feet. My flashlight is on my belt. I flick it on now. The beam slices through the trees, backlighting rain. I sweep across the ravine's opposite wall. Steep dirt, tangled roots, no way up. This hollow is sealed on all sides by forest. My radio crackles again. We're here. 2 headlights cut through the dark. I wave them down the slope. They pull to the rim and kill lights. I knot my fingers around my belt. They join me at the mound. I point. Look. They crouch, flashlights dancing over the soil. One runs a gloved hand over the top. No prints, no foreign object. "What are we looking at?" he asks. I can't answer. My voice is tight. "I don't know," I admit. "But he was here. He walked in my footsteps, but then..." I wave at the hollow. Nothing. We stand in silence. The rain hushes to a drizzle. The forest seems to lean in, waiting. I finally say, "He didn't just disappear. He dissolved. Followed some path we can't see." My words hang, absurd, but I mean them. My deputy's eyes meet mine. We both know it's no good. No one will file a report. Disappeared into the earth. He grips my shoulder. "Let's get out of here," he says. "This doesn't look good after midnight." I nod. We climb back up the slope. My boots scrabble in the mud. I leave prints this time, each one a reminder of my failure to follow his. At the road, the sedan's lights are gone. No car returned, no sign of him. Back in the cruiser, I slide behind the wheel. My muscles ache. I start the engine and pull onto the pavement. Headlights off. I drive 2 miles in silence, then switch them back on. I radio dispatch. All clear. No sign of the vehicle. I hang up. I don't mention the mound. I file it in my mind, as secret evidence I can't admit to. I drive home under the oncoming streetlights, thinking of the forest's hidden hollow, its secret entrance no one else will find. Tomorrow I'll return. I'll dig deeper, literally, if I have to. I'll search until I uncover something real, until I break the surface of that unmarked grave, or until they haul me off for digging graves without permission. I don't care, because I know what lurks beneath. Not a person, but a passage. A doorway in the earth that leads nowhere and everywhere. I pull into my driveway at dawn. I kill the engine and sit in the darkness, letting the quiet flood in. I place a hand against my chest, my heart still pounding. I whisper, "I'll find you, son of a bitch." And I step out, leaving behind tire tracks that lead only away from the truth. I slip out of bed before dawn, boots by the door. I dressed in jeans and a hoodie, no uniform. My journal and a small shovel sit on the kitchen table next to a half-empty mug. I pour black coffee, let its heat settle in my hands. My wife and daughter sleep behind closed doors. I won't wake them. They don't need this. I drive to County Road 27 in silence. The sky is bruised purple. Mist drifts over fields, clinging to fence posts like ghosts. I park where the pavement meets gravel and kill the engine. No lights, no radio. I step out, hood up, coffee in hand, and walk toward the forest. Every breath tastes of wet earth. The trees loom overhead, trunks slick and dark. My heartbeat thumps in my ears. I carry the shovel and a coil of yellow tape. Do not cross. I plan to mark the spot, dig until I hit something real, something undeniable. I reach the ravine. Dawn light filters in pale streaks. I kneel by the mound. Moss has reclaimed part of it since last night. I brush leaves aside. Fresh dew beads on ferns. The earth is soft. I jab the shovel into soil. The blade sinks easily, as if the ground wants me to go deeper. I pull out clods of dirt and pile them nearby. Under each turd, I search. Roots tangle between fingers. I cut them away. My muscles burn. My breath steams. 10 minutes pass, 30. I've dug nearly 2 feet down. The smell of wet dirt and rotted wood fills my nose. I find bits of leaf litter, small stones, nothing else. No sign of cloth, no metal fragments. I wipe sweat from my brow, taste grit on my tongue. I keep digging. My clothes darken with mud. My gloves tear on roots. A throbbing starts in my forearms. I don't stop. I want answers. I have to know what swallowed him whole. At 3 feet, the blade hits something. A dull clang. My heart jumps. I scrape mud away. My flashlight, slung on my belt, glows faint gold. Beneath the soil is a metal plate, rusted, warped. The shape is rectangular, like a manhole cover, but too small. I grip the plate with both hands. It yields and tilts, revealing a dark cavity. My flashlight beam falls through the opening. A shaft of earth, about a foot wide, descending into darkness. Roots hang like curtains. I crouch and shine my light down. Nothing but soil walls, no ladder, no visible bottom. I press my palm to the edge of the hole. The earth is cold, damp. It smells ancient. I hear nothing inside, no drip of water, no whisper of wind, only the hum of my own blood. I back up a step. My legs wobble. I stare at that hole. It's a doorway beneath the forest floor. I kneel, lean forward until my face nearly touches the opening. I feel vertigo, like staring into a skull's hollow eye. My phone vibrates in my pocket. I pull it out. A text from dispatch. Any luck? We're worried. I thumb a reply. Found something. Sending photo. I attach a shot of the hole in the plate. I'll check it more in daylight. I hit send. They reply, be careful. Don't go down there. I pocket the phone, stand, and brush dirt from my knees. Sunlight is stronger now, but the hole remains dark. I step closer again. My shovel lays beside the opening. I kneel and grip the rim. I whisper into the shaft, voice echoing faintly. Can you hear me? Silence. Yet I feel a stir, a breath of air caressing my cheek. I pull back, hand trembling. I wipe mud from the plate. The metal is inscribed with letters I can't fully make out. E. X. I bend closer. The letters form a word scrambled by rust. I clear more dirt. Exit. I swallow. An exit? A way out? It doesn't make sense. This is an entrance. A reverse door carved into the earth. Someone built this. Someone who knew what they were doing. My heart hammers. I reach in with my shovel handle, prod the cavity wall. The touch confirms smooth metal lining beneath soil. This hole is not natural. It's man-made. I back away. My mind reels. All those disappearances. Walking toward a hidden door, stepping inside, bleeding into the earth. I stare at the tiny entrance and think of each victim willingly descending, never returning. I drag out the shovel. I hammer the plate back into place. It clanks, then settles flush. I pat dirt over the edges, brush leaves across, covering any sign of disturbance. The mound reforms. Moss drapes over it. The forest floor heals. I stand and look around. The trees seem to shift, each trunk a sentinel guarding a secret. I place the yellow tape in my pocket. I will not mark this spot. No public record. This hole belongs to someone else now. I walk back to the cruiser and sink into the seat. My chest is tight, lungs burning. I close my eyes. The forest hush beyond the windshield is absolute. I start the engine, headlights piercing gloom. I drive back down the gravel, leaving no tracks. The road is empty. I brake for every curve. I feel the holes echo in my bones. I reach pavement and straighten the wheel. The station's lights glow ahead. Inside, I wash mud from my hands in the restroom sink. I stare at my reflection. Bloodshot eyes, mud under my nails. I scrub until my skin burns. I grab a towel and wipe face and hair. I should log evidence, should call the state police, should submit the plate for analysis. I don't. I leave the shovel in my cruiser. I leave the tape in my pocket. I don't file a follow-up. The station computer hums. I kill my laptop and leave. Back home, my wife and daughter are awake. My daughter runs to me, arms wide. I hug her stiffly. She asks about breakfast. I ruffle her hair and say pancakes. My wife asks where I was this morning. I say patrol. She nods and turns to coffee. I slip into the yard while they fix plates. I stand under the oak I planted. Its branches sway in a breeze. I touch the bark where I knelt on this morning's grave. I taste earth on my tongue again. My daughter's laughter drifts through the window. My wife's humming joins it. I swallow. I force a smile, brush mud from my pants leg. I step back inside. Later, I'm in my study, journal open. I write, I found an exit. A door in the dirt. It leads who knows where. I buried it again. I won't speak of this. If it's known, it will draw others. I will guard the secret. I will stand watch. I close the journal and sit in the dark. Outside, thunder rumbles. A storm moves in. Rain spatter begins on the roof. I listen until my eyelids droop. Then I hear it. A soft creak from the hallway. The floorboard that never creaks. Heartbeat thudding, I rise. Silence follows. I walk to the door. I grip the handle. I open it a crack. A shape stands in the hallway. Tall, silent, hat brim low. My blood turns to ice. He points one finger at me. I close my eyes and whisper, "Go home." I wake in the backseat of my cruiser, headlights off, engine idling. The rain stopped. The windshield wipers are frozen mid-swipe. My head aches. I rub my eyes. The radio crackles softly, but no one's talking. I realize I dozed. My fingers are crossed over my journal, open to the last entry. He followed me home. I sit up and unbuckle the seatbelt. I kill the engine and step into the cold air. The street is empty. No lights from houses. The station is dark. I should go inside, write a report, make sense of what happened. Instead, I walk the few steps to my front door. The porch light is out. I fumble for my keys, find the right one by feel, and slip inside. The house is quiet. My wife's side of the bed is empty. My daughter's blanket lies on the floor. I follow footprints in the carpet, muddy boots, like mine, leading down the hallway. I pause outside her door. Low voices drift through the crack. Hers, soft and sleepy. His, too low to be any human voice I know. I open the door. The room is dark except for the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. On her bed stands the man in the hat. He's rocking my daughter gently in his arms. Her brown hair fans across his wet jacket, her eyes closed. She hums a tune I told her last week, one I thought she'd forgotten. He looks up. His brim casts her face in shadow. He raises a finger to his lips, then tilts his head. His free hand taps at his chest, over his heart. I stand frozen, heart pounding. My boots leave muddy prints across her rug. I clear my throat. The man doesn't blink. He barely moves. The moment stretches. I take a step forward. He hands my daughter to me without speaking. Her small body is warm but limp, like she's asleep. I cradle her and feel her heartbeat slow and steady against my chest. She sighs and cuddles into me. He nods once, then turns. I hear his boots on the carpet. I watch him pass through the door. His hat's silhouette slips into the hallway shadows beyond my sight. Then I close the door. I look down at my daughter's sleeping face. Her breathing is peaceful. I ease her back into bed and pull the covers up. She stirs, murmurs, then settles again. I stand at the foot of her bed, hands on hips, mind racing. I back out quietly, as if he's still watching. I cross the hall to our bedroom door. I peek in. My wife sleeps on her back, mouth slightly open. I step inside, brush her hair back, kiss her cheek. She murmurs my name, turns away. I stay, hands on the doorframe, listening to the house's soft creaks. I head to the kitchen. I fill a glass with water. My reflection grips the counter. Dark circles under eyes, wet coat slung on a chair, the badge on my desk blurred in the lamplight. I take a drink, cold against my throat. I know I should report this. A man entering a child's room. But I don't. I set the glass down and flip open the journal. The final pages are blank. I write one line. He brings them back. I close it, pocket the pen. Outside, the sky lightens. Dawn is minutes away. I step onto the porch, breathe in the crisp air. The oak stands guard by the mailbox. I touch its bark, rough beneath my fingers. I think of the door in the dirt, the manhole in the woods, the victims who vanished, and those returned. My radio crackles. Deputy Dalton, morning roll call in 5. I don't reply. I look down the street, no headlights, no sirens, just empty asphalt disappearing in pale light. I slip back inside and lock the door. I lay my jacket on the hall hook and pad to the office. I grab my uniform shirt, buckle my belt, and sit at the desk. I don't log the incident. I type up a note on the missing person. Car found unoccupied, investigation ongoing, no leads. I save and close the file. I lean back, fingers steepled under my chin. I stare at the computer screen, blank and waiting. I reach into my pocket, pull out the journal, and set it beside the keyboard. On the cover, smeared with mud and fingerprints, I see his name scrawled in faint ink. Thornton. I close my eyes. The station is silent. My heart is loud. I open my eyes, stand and lift the badge from the desk. I hold it in my palm for a long moment. I place it back, and I whisper, "He keeps his promise." And I carry on, alone, guarding the secret of the man who never left. I leave the station just after breakfast, uniform shirt neatly pressed, tie loosened. But I don't drive home. Instead, I take County Road 27 back out past the farms, past the stand of pines, past the sign warning of closures at night. Daylight spills across the pavement, but the forest still feels too close, too dark. My boots rest on the cruiser's floor mat. My badge sits heavy on my chest, but I feel empty underneath it. I park at the familiar gravel shoulder and kill the engine. No one else is here, no passing cars. I step out, tug my tie free, and roll up my sleeves. A breeze drifts through the trees, carrying a faint scent of wet earth. It pulls at me. I take a slow breath, tasting wood smoke and damp leaves in the air. The forest edge stands silent, like a threshold I've been circling for days. In my jacket pocket is my journal. On the back cover, Thornton's name is smudged and half crossed out. I pull it free, press it to my chest. The pages rustle in the slight wind. I consult the last entry. He brings them back. I close my eyes, trying to steady my racing heart. I tuck the journal into my inside pocket and stride forward. The ground beneath the trees looks ordinary in daylight. Leaf litter, broken twigs, a few patches of moss. But I know the secret. I know where the hidden manhole lies. I follow the trail of flattened leaves, the slight rise in the earth. I crouch at the base of the great oaks and run a fingertip over the hollow spot. The soil slides away under touch. My shovel from the cruiser lies propped against the car. I fetch it, plant it into the earth. I heave handfuls of dirt aside until I uncover the rusted plate again. Sunlight glints off the metal. I brush moss away and set the plate on the ground, revealing the narrow cavity beneath. My flashlight hangs on my belt. I flick it on and shine the beam down. The walls are still lined with metal. The narrow shaft descends into darkness. The word "exit" is still etched on the rim, though half the letters are eaten by rust. I lower myself to one knee and shine the light deeper. I see nothing but earth walls. No ladder, no steps. I turn the beam around, roots overhead, dripping moisture. My breath slows as I listen. I swear I hear a faint padding sound, like bare feet on soil. Not mine, something else. I jolt upright, heart in my throat, but the forest is still. The world is still. The The breeze burrows through trees, but there is no other motion. I hit the rim of the hole with the butt of my flashlight. A hollow echo rings like distant thunder far underground. Then silence. I catch my breath and notice something else. The forest floor beyond the hole is sprouting small mushrooms in a neat circle. White caps no bigger than a coin. They weren't there yesterday. They form a perfect ring around the clearing. I shiver. A fungus circle, a fairy ring, something old and unnatural in the woods. I stand and pat the earth back into place over the plate, then cover it with leaves and twigs until the mound is gone. The mushrooms remain, impossible and delicate, tilting toward the sun. I step back and watch them for a long moment. My chest is tight, lungs burning. I step around the ring, careful not to disturb it. The forest feels alive now, as if it's watching me return its secret. My flashlight beam trembles in my hand. I pocket it and turn for the cruiser. As I walk back, I feel eyes on my back. I whirl around, nothing but trees. My boots crush, ferns and dead needles. I tell myself it's paranoia, that my mind is unraveling. But I know the truth. Someone, or something, has been waiting for me to finish the work I started. I board the cruiser and sit in the driver's seat, hands gripping the wheel. I let the engine tick over for a moment, then shut it off. I look at the dashboard clock, 10:47 a.m. I promised my wife I'd be home before lunch. I told my daughter I'd make pancakes. Those words feel hollow in my mouth now. I pull my journal out again and write a new note. Mushroom ring. Sealed entrance. Forest remains. He waits. I close the book and tuck it away. I lean back, close my eyes, and listen to the silence inside the cruiser. My radio crackles. Deputy Dalton, are you clear to start patrol? I hesitate, thumb hovering over the Vox button. I replay the last week in my mind. The empty car, the man who vanished, the unmarked grave, the secret hole, the returned child, the fungus ring. Each detail like a bead on a rosary, counting prayers of dread. I switch the radio off. I need time. I need distance. I need to decide if I will live with the secret or if I will expose it and risk unleashing whatever made that hidden doorway. I start the engine again and pull away without a word. The road is empty. Light filters through breaks in the canopy. I tell myself I'm on patrol, that I'm doing my duty, but I drive only to the crest of a small hill, then hit the flashers and pull off to the side. I kill the engine a final time and step out. The world is still. The forest holds its breath. I lean against the cruiser and stare at the trees. I think of the victims who walked of their own accord. I think of Thornton stepping into the woods with his daughter in his arms, as if he'd learned to walk both sides of that exit. I slide my hand into my pocket and find the small length of yellow crime tape I never used. I pull it out, wave one end at the trees, then fling it into the underbrush. It snags on a branch and flutters like a wounded bird. Wind rustles the leaves. The tape snaps against bark. For a heartbeat, I see movement deep in the shadows. Something slender stepping between two trunks. A hat brim, a coat sleeve, a finger raised in greeting. I blink, and the forest is still again. Only the tape flutters, limp. I kneel and pick up the tape, roll it into a ball, and put it in my pocket. I stand and brush pant legs free of leaves. My coat is damp, my heart is damp. I slip into the cruiser, close the door, and lock it. I stare at the steering wheel. I think of the circle of mushrooms breathing in the clearing, the hidden manhole, the child returned, and the man who followed me home. I wonder what lies beyond that narrow shaft, what draws souls into the earth. I turn the key. The engine rumbles. I pull onto the pavement and head toward town. I pass the sign, Blackwood County, population 16,742. I hesitate under the yellow letters, then drive on. I know I should write one final report. Open case, unexplained disappearances, possible subterranean passage. Recommend full excavation. But I won't, I can't. The world isn't ready, and neither am I. I drive home. I will face my wife and daughter, tell them I'm fine. I will serve my shift. I will smile and nod at neighbors. I will sleep in my own bed. I will forge on. But every night I will lie awake, waiting for the creak of floorboard outside my door. Every morning I will rise and test for the hidden doorway in the earth beneath my feet. Because I know it's there. And I know it's waiting for the next curious soul to step off the road and into the dark, just as I did. I pull into my driveway at dusk. I kill the engine and sit for a long moment. I reach into my pocket, pull out my pen, and jot one last line in my journal. Some doors can only be sealed and never forgotten. I eased the cruiser onto Forest Service Road 17 just after midnight. Grip on the wheel, the only thing keeping me steady. The night was quiet, too quiet. Radio static, no voices. Just the thrum of the engine and wind scraping against the windshield. The beam of my headlight cut through the pines. Gravel kicked up beneath the tires as I drove slower. There, half a mile ahead, a blue sedan parked at a crooked angle. Driver's door ajar. Interior dome light still warm. I killed the engine. The world went black, except for my flashlight beam. It felt like stepping into another world, one where daylight never reaches, and nothing moves but shadows. I climbed out. The night air was cold, smelled of pine and damp earth. I flicked on my flashlight and swept it across the car. No signs of struggle, no skid marks on the road, no blood on the asphalt. Just the vehicle, empty, waiting. I unholstered my sidearm and clicked on the beam again, checking behind the wheel. Driver's seat pushed back. No wallet on the console, no keys in the ignition. I knelt by the open door and ran my hand over the map on the passenger seat. Coordinates scrawled in black ink. Deep inside the national forest. Land split between federal and private parcels. The name on the registration, Martin Wells, Vanderbilt geology professor. Nice guy, by the sounds of the call. He'd been researching old mining shafts here, should have been long gone by now. Wife filed missing person report 2 days back. I slammed the door shut. Radio crackled. Millbrook County dispatch to Sheriff Tanner. My voice was flat. I've got the car, no sign of Wells. I'm checking the surroundings, then organizing search. Over. Static. Copy. Be advised it's 2 counties away. Request ETA on backup. The trees pressed in. Silence deep enough to hear my own heartbeat. I grabbed my radio and pressed it to my mouth again. Backup, ETA? A pause, then about 30. I nodded to myself, though no one could see. I pocketed the radio, holstered my weapon, and aimed the flashlight down a faint boot track leading away from the road into the woods. The track was fresh. Boots in damp mud, too narrow for 2. I followed it under low branches that scraped my shoulders. Leaves crunched underfoot. The beam danced across broken ferns, moss-covered logs, then stopped. 2 sets of prints, one large, one smaller, maybe 5 inches across, both heading deeper, toward the dark. I keyed the mic. Found footprints, 2 sizes, following them. No reply. I steeled myself and pressed on. Trees arched overhead. Moonlight filtered through needles, but it didn't help much. I raised the beam skyward. Nothing but branches. My breath puffed out in clouds. I reached a clearing. An old guardrail, rusted and half-buried, marked the edge of a collapsed mine entrance. Wooden planks lay scattered. Steel timbers sagged inward. The tunnel yawned like an open mouth. Damp air rolled out, cold and stale. My stomach tightened. I stepped forward. Flashlight lit the entrance. Carved symbols on the stone lintel, curved lines and jagged edges. I crouched and traced them with gloved fingers. No record of this in federal files. Not in the geology books. Nothing in the county archives. Whoever carved these did it long ago. My radio crackled beside my ear. "Tanner, you copy?" My pulse rattled the words. "Sheriff here. Backup's here. 2 deputies. Copy?" "Copy. Send them down the road." I stood, shining the beam into the tunnel. Blackness deeper than night. I swallowed. "I'm checking inside." They arrived beside the cruiser. I told them, "Stay here." "I'm going in." They didn't argue, just nodded. Flashlight in one hand, pistol in the other. I kicked aside a plank and stepped inside. Walls glistened with moisture. The air smelled of earth and something else. Old decay. My boot slapped the wooden support beams. Some cracked underfoot. Every breath echoed. 100 feet in, the tunnel split. Left fork sloped downward. Right fork rose slightly. Timbers broken. I went left. Mud sucked the sole of my boot. The beam landed on a chamber. Symbols again, carved deeper here. Bones, scattered on the dirt floor. Animal fragments at first, ribs and a jaw, then human. A skull, teeth stained brown. I knelt, shudder running through me. Professional training overrode the nausea. Photographed everything. Radio hissed. "Tanner, you okay?" My voice caught. "I've got bones down here. Do you need medical?" Number I, need to see more. I pressed deeper. The passage narrowed. I had to crouch. Head cracked the ceiling. Dust fell. The beam caught glints of metal. An old canteen, a leather boot, a watch face frozen at midnight. Silence closed in. My heart loud as thunder. I should have turned back, should have sealed the entrance. But I kept going. A jagged tunnel wall opened into a chamber. Stone table at center. Bones ringed it like a grotesque dining set. Animal femurs leaning against human ribs. Each bone polished smooth by time or something else. The symbols here were fresh. Wire-thin scratches. They trailed across the table, and as if someone had paced. I raised the beam. The far corner shimmered. My breath caught. Movement? No, just shadow. Then I heard my deputy's voice, distorted on the radio. "James, get out, now." Broke the spell. I pivoted toward the entrance, only darkness. My radio screamed, "Tanner!" Then a single gunshot echoed. My blood froze mid-beat. I sprinted back, beam swinging, legs pumping. My deputy burst past me, face ashen, gun shaking. "Something, out there," he stammered. "Tall, wrong, I saw it." He turned the light down the tunnel, but it was empty. Just the dead bones and symbols. We didn't speak as we climbed back to the road. The night swallowed the tunnel behind us. I stared at the sealed opening. The sedan down the slope, empty. Nearby, the woods seemed to lean closer, watching. The radio fell silent. My heart hammered. That night, I couldn't sleep. In the dark of my bedroom, I saw the coat I'd hung on the door, a silhouette beyond the window, thin, still, watching. I told myself it was a trick of the mind. A branch. Anything but what I knew. But deep down, I heard those radio words again. "Get out. Now." And I knew they weren't meant for me alone. The sunrise came too quick. I sat at the kitchen table in silence, coffee gone cold. My deputy's warning echoed in my head. It moved out there. Too wrong. I ran a hand through my hair, the walls pressed in. I could still taste the stale air of that chamber. Dispatch called. They had reports now. Other cars abandoned on back roads. Same pattern, same empty seats, same warm dome lights. I marked each location on a map, all within 20 miles of the sealed tunnel, all within the boundary of Millbrook County. By noon, word got out. Reporters wanted statements. I gave them nothing. A flat no comment each time. Officials in Nashville called. State police wanted to take over. I told them to wait. It was my county, my woods, my people. That afternoon, the coroner arrived. He leaned into the cruiser as I unlocked the back gate. Bones packed in evidence bags. We loaded them onto the stretcher. The symbols scratched in mud beside the mine entrance were photographed again. I watched the coroner's face. He didn't flinch. Back at headquarters, the bones went into cold storage. I walked past them. Each bag tagged with a number, a location. Humankind reduced to fragments. They'd date them, compare them, pin them to timelines. I shut the storage door. My phone buzzed. Regional FBI. They wanted to visit tonight. I agreed. I needed answers more than they did. They arrived at dusk. 2 agents, quiet men in dark suits, no badgering, no cynicism, just notebooks and questions. They asked about the symbols. I showed them my photos they compared to known languages. Nothing matched, not native, not any cult. One agent tapped his pen. These look deliberate, ritualistic. He shrugged. Beyond my expertise. They asked about the bones. I walked them through the chain of custody. The deputy watching the entrance. The gunshot. I left out nothing. They took notes. They didn't look familiar with mountain terrain. They didn't grasp the isolation out here. Night fell. We drove to the mine. I led them inside. My light bounced against wet walls. They paused at the chamber with the stone table. Bones ringed it like a crown. One agent knelt and examined a skull. Brown stains, cracks. Post-mortem, he said. Maybe animals gnawed these. I shook my head. These were arranged. Someone placed them. He listened. His face went hard. Then we have a killer. If so, he's been at it for decades. I didn't respond. They sealed the tunnel that night again. Steel plates bolted over timbers. Fresh concrete poured around the entrance. They filmed every inch. I watched them work. All professional. All distant. They wouldn't guard it. That was on me and the county. Weeks passed. The press died down. Locals whispered in stores. They crossed the street when they saw me. Farmers locked gates tight. Hunters avoided 17. I felt their eyes. A county on edge. One afternoon, I went to the ranger station in Cedar Falls. Old Eleonora Guidi met me at the door. Her eyes were hollow. She ushered me inside. Dust motes hung in sunlight. She closed the door. "You shouldn't have pressed," she said. "They warned me not to talk." She slid a thin file across the desk. Yellowed pages. Typed reports from 1983. Engineer's notes. None mentioned symbols or bones. Nothing about the fallout. Just a suggestion that the shaft was unstable. "I hid what I knew," she whispered. "I should have stopped it then. But I was young." I flipped through reports. Sketches of tunnel supports. No mention of skeletons. No photos. "Why lie?" I asked. She shrugged. "Some things aren't meant for print." She sank into a chair. They sealed it then, and they made us swear. We never spoke. We moved on. I left with the file. In my cruiser, I read every word. Nothing new, everything missing. The silence between lines louder than any confession. That night, I slept poorly. My deputy found me at dawn, staring at the wall. He handed me black coffee. "We got another one," he said. "Car at the edge of Pine Creek Road, same as before." I nodded. The pattern was clear. Someone or something was driving these vehicles off the road, leaving clues, leading them back into the woods, into those tunnels. We met the search team at Pine Creek, rangers, deputies, state police. Rain fell in sheets, mud slick underfoot. The sedan sat by a dying oak, headlights blinking in the gloom. Door open. I didn't stop to call dispatch. I sprinted into the woods, radio in hand. "Stay at the sedan," I barked. Boot prints, 2 sets again. We crossed a creek, water up to our ankles. The forest grew thick. My flashlight caught mullock, debris from the mine, the scent of earth and moss. We followed the prints under bent hemlocks until we reached a slope. There, fresh footprints led down into a narrow shaft, an old ventilation pit long since covered. I knelt at the lip. The rain washed the symbols carved into concrete. I traced them with trembling fingers. They matched the ones we'd seen. I looked back. The team hovered at the edge, rain dripping off brims of hats, their faces drained. "How deep?" a ranger asked. I stood. "Shallow enough to drop in, deep enough to disappear." We lowered ourselves with ropes, mud-caked shoulders. My light slipped on one damp wall. I caught it before it hit. Fear crawled up my spine. Something felt off. The air grew stale. The tunnel narrowed to a crawl space. My chest heaved. I squeezed through. The beam landed on a low archway. Beyond, a chamber cut from rock. Damp bones littered the ground. Scattered shards of a rusted canteen. A boot sole, a broken watch. I bent and touched a bone. It felt brittle. My radio buzzed. "Sheriff?" I turned. One deputy stood at the entrance. He shook his head. "I saw it," he whispered. "There, over your shoulder." I swung the beam. Nothing but walls. My breath fell flat. I reached the far end. Symbols scraped into the stone. My flashlight trembled. I backed up. Then I saw it. Thin legs folded beneath a ledge. Pale and too long. A silhouette against the rock. It didn't move. My radio cut out. The wind outside howled. The beam wavered. Silence pressed in. I raised my pistol. A dry click. I squeezed the trigger. Nothing. No recoil. The chamber stayed still. No heartbeat. No breath. I dropped the light. Ran. Kicked my shin on debris. Pain exploded. I kept going. The deputy grabbed my arm. "Sheriff!" He pulled me out. The rain hit my face like bullets. We collapsed at the surface. Ropes tangled. The chamber swallowed our cries. They sealed that pit by morning. Concrete dumped in the opening. They mixed fast in the rain. I watched the gray sludge fill the hole, burying the bones and symbols, and whatever had waited inside. Back at home, I sat on the porch. Rain streamed down the roof. I held my deputy's radio, dead static inside. No voices, no warnings. The morning light crept through the blinds, thin and pale. I barely noticed. My deputy's words haunted me. "There, over your shoulder." I replayed them endlessly. The world outside moved on, but I felt frozen in that tunnel, the shape crouched in shadow, watching. I rubbed my temples and stood. My legs wobbled beneath me. I forced myself into motion. I drove to the station. The halls smelled of stale coffee and vinyl chairs. I passed the coroner's cold storage where bones lay cataloged like crime scene souvenirs. Each bag was a name I wouldn't know. I pressed my palm to the door as if seeking reassurance. A stack of calls waited, another abandoned sedan, then a frantic 911 from a farmer. Cattle vanished near the old mine road. No footprints, no tracks, only silence where life had been. I scribbled notes. My deputy met me in the parking lot. He looked older than his 30 years. His eyes were red. "I got your radio," he said. He held the walkie-talkie like it was a bomb. I handed it back without a word. We drove out in the cruiser. Rain threatened again. The road to the mine passed through fields and clumps of trees. The forest seemed to follow us, limbs reaching like hands. We parked at the gates they'd welded shut. Warning signs posted, "Danger. Keep out." My boots crunched gravel as I walked the perimeter. I studied the concrete seal. It had cracked in places. Roots pushed through like veins. I traced one crack with a gloved finger. It felt alive. A soft hum seemed to pulse beneath my fingertips. I yanked my hand back. My deputy shifted uneasily. "Sheriff," he said, "there was movement last night. Near the northern fence. I swore I saw something cross." I nodded, not trusting my voice. We headed back to the cruiser and drove toward the bunker by Pine Creek, the old ventilation pit they'd sealed. We needed to confirm it hadn't been disturbed. Every closure we'd made had been torn open again. Concrete and steel meant nothing. We arrived to find fresh tire tracks in the mud, smaller than a sedan's. They led into the woods. We followed. Trees closed overhead. The undergrowth was trampled. I caught glimpses of our footprints from days ago, erased by wind, rain, and something else. We passed the collapsed guardrail that marked the old mine road. The tunnel entrance lay hidden beneath a tangle of briars. My stomach tightened. I should have felt relief that the sealed ventilation pit was undisturbed. Instead, the woods felt oppressive, a weight on my chest. I glanced at my deputy. His jaw was clenched. We headed back to the station. Reports kept flooding in. Missing hikers, stolen ATVs, terrified local teenagers claiming they heard voices in the woods at night. No bodies, no proof, just fear. Over the next week, I scarcely slept. I found myself at odd hours driving those back roads, sometimes alone, sometimes with my deputy. We'd crunch through gravel until headlights caught on empty cars. We'd search fields by flashlight. Each time, the same fruitless end. No people, no struggle, only that sense of being watched. At home, I started having dreams. I was back in the tunnel. My right arm was trapped behind a fallen beam. The shape came closer and laid a bony hand on my shoulder. Its fingers were impossibly thin. Bones scraped my skin, yet there was no wound. It whispered, no voice, only the echo of all the radio static I'd ever heard. I woke, gasping, sweat drenching my uniform shirt. I considered resigning. Let someone else clean up this mess. Let the FBI come back, call it a cult or a serial killer. But I couldn't. I'd drawn lines in this county's dirt. I couldn't abandon it. I answered every call. I filed every report. I tried to be a sheriff, but I felt like a man running in circles in a maze he couldn't see. Then came the call from the neighbor of the Weaver farm. He said the lights in the old schoolhouse flickered on at midnight. The building had been condemned years ago. No power. We arrived to find the doors padlocked. Yet inside, motion sensor lights cycled on and off. I jiggled the lock. It shook, but stayed firm. I radioed for the state electrician to inspect. He arrived 2 days later. He found a generator hidden beneath the floorboards, old and rusted, but still running. No footprints led to it, no cords, just the hum of diesel and a distant thump like a heartbeat. He cut the power. Lights died. Silence fell heavier than before. I searched every inch of that schoolhouse. Classrooms empty, desks overturned, walls scrawled with symbols identical to those in the mine. They were everywhere, sprayed on chalkboards, carved into wooden floors, painted on mural remnants. Someone had been here, watching long after closure. Watching us. Back at my house, I locked every door. I checked windows. I loaded my service weapon. At 2 a.m., I sat in my recliner with a pistol on my lap, staring at the ceiling. My wife stopped speaking to me weeks ago. My teenage son stays in his room. They think I'm unraveling. Maybe I am. 2 days later, the state electrician called. He'd found more generators, in the shed behind the county barn. He found cables running underground to 3 different locations, all seals disturbed. One ran straight to the sealed mine entrance, another to the ventilation pit, and the third to that schoolhouse. Whoever set them up knew the land, knew every corner. I stared at the electrician's map. It looked like a spider's web. All roads led back to the forest's heart. The symbols formed a circle. The circle was broken only by our closures, our efforts to hide what lay beneath. But the land remembered. It whispered. That night, I drove to the center of the web, the point where all three cables converged beneath a gnarled oak. I parked and got out. Rain slicked my uniform. Thunder rumbled. I crouched and dug at the soft earth with my bare hands. Cavern air hissed from a narrow crack. I pried aside roots and soil until a rusted grate appeared. The symbols were etched into the metal. I touched them, cold, unforgiving. I lifted the grate. Darkness. I raised my flashlight and saw the ladder descending. Rusted rungs swayed. No sound reached me beyond the drip of water. I hesitated. My pulse screamed. My mind begged me to turn away, yet I lowered myself. Each rung made a hollow clang. My boots touched the bottom. I clicked on my beam. The walls curved inward. The smell hit me. Dust, decay, damp rock, old life rotting. The beam swept downward. Bones. Dozens of bags stacked along the walls. Fresh plastic, tagged and numbered. I recognized some numbers, those from recent missing person cases. I swallowed. A voice crackled on my radio, my deputy. "Sheriff, status?" His tone was strained. "I found the shutoff valve for the generator powers out up top." I stood. "I'm inside the main shaft. Do you want me to come down?" He paused, breathing hard. "Yes, no, wait, Sheriff, something's moving." I swung the beam. I saw wet footprints leading away from the bags, too big for mine, too deliberate. I followed them to a side tunnel. The air grew warmer. The sound of dripping stopped. Silence. I stepped into the darkness. The beam trembled. Then the light caught it. Standing at the far end, tall, gaunt, limbs too long. The shape turned its head, no flesh, just bone and stretched skin. Empty eye sockets. A hollow smile. It wore a tattered jacket that hung off its frame like rags. It tilted its head and raised a thin hand in a slow wave. My blood froze. The radio went silent. My mind screamed. I couldn't move. Then it stepped forward. Bones cracked. Footsteps hollow, each closer. I lifted my pistol, but my hands shook uncontrollably. The shape stopped 10 feet away. It cocked its head. I exhaled. My breath rattled in my chest. I swallowed. I should have fired. I should have retreated. But I did neither. I whispered, "Why?" It didn't answer. It raised its hand again, pointing deeper into the tunnel. Then it disappeared, into pitch. I blinked. The shapes of bags and bones remained. I heard a faint whisper on the radio, my deputy's voice. "Sheriff, please." I backed toward the ladder. My heart hammered. I climbed. Rungs slipped beneath my boots. I reached the top and pulled the grate shut. The forest rain masked my escape. My hands were slick with mud and something else, fresh bone dust. I stumbled back to the cruiser. My deputy waited, eyes wide. "Did you see?" He stopped. I shook my head. "I don't know what I saw." He took my arm and guided me into the back seat. He locked the door behind us. I sat between the bags of evidence, breathing hard. The forest loomed beyond the window. It swayed with the wind, shadows dancing. The radio crackled once, then nothing. The forest swallowed sound. I stared at the cordoned oak, now above the grate, sealing what lay below. I pressed my forehead to the glass. The thunder rolled. A single raindrop slid down the window and I saw it reflected, a figure behind me. Tall, thin, watching. I didn't turn around. I sat in silence until dawn. Dawn seeped through the trees in pale streaks, but I didn't move. The cruiser idled at the edge of the woods, heater on low, rain still tapping the roof. My deputy sat beside me, head leaning against the window, eyes closed. His chest rose and fell, slow, shallow, a man half awake, half broken. I watched the oak above the grate. Symbols scratched into the bark, fresh and bleeding sap. They pulsed in the gray light, a reminder that nothing I did held. The grate was bolted shut, concrete poured, but the rumble beneath my feet told me it wasn't enough. My gun lay on the seat between us. I stared at it and thought of the bone-white hand, those empty eye sockets, the hush it carried. I should have fired. I should have raised the radio. I should have run. Instead, I crawled back out muddy and hollow and let the forest cradle its secret once more. A shot rang out. I spun the beam toward the road. My deputy jolted upright, eyes wide. "What?" He grabbed my arm. "Shot from the highway." We tumbled from the cruiser, boots slipping in mud. We reached the road at the same time as the headlights rounded the curve. State troopers, lights off, silent arrival. They spread out, weapons drawn. I held up a hand. "I'm Sheriff Tanner. Keep your rifles down." The lead trooper lowered his. Pale face, eyes haunted. "Sheriff, we got reports of shots near Pine Creek. We thought it might be bear poachers." He glanced at the woods. "You all right?" I nodded. "Just another night." He studied me. "Deputy Richter looks like hell." Richter slumped against the hood, shaking. The trooper knelt. "Corporal? You need to see a medic?" Richter shook his head. "I'm fine." He touched his collar. "Just can't get it out of my head." The troopers offered to secure the area. I told them where the entrances were sealed. They radioed for engineers to cover the old ventilation pit, the mine shaft, the schoolhouse. They taped off a perimeter and called in K-9 units. We waited in silence, rain turning to drizzle, mist wrapping the forest in gauze. Hours later, the search teams returned. No bodies, no suspects. K-9s scented nothing. The troopers planted steel plates over the pit and mine, welded solid this time. They hauled generators off the school grounds and cut the cables underground. They left behind surveillance cameras aimed at all 3 sites, in hopes of catching whoever kept reopening them. By midday, the perimeter was quiet. Troopers packed up. I watched them go, gravel crunching beneath their boots, until only Richter and I remained. He lit a cigarette and held it out without asking. The smoke curled between us. "What now?" he asked, voice thin. I rubbed my eyes. "Now we wait." I turned toward the oak. The symbols gleamed in the sun. I felt a weight settle in my gut. Waiting meant nothing if the watcher could slip through steel and concrete. That afternoon, we drove back to headquarters. A photographer snapped pictures of the sealed sites, notes taken, logs signed. I reviewed them while Richter slumped at his desk, head on his arms. I caught my reflection in the glass. A man hollowed out by secrets in mud. An hour later, I found Rita Givens, the county clerk, in her cubicle. Her office held the records, old maps, land deeds, forestry files. I asked for every document related to Forest Service Road 17, the blocked tunnels, missing person cases. She printed pages until the printer whined and jammed. I sorted the stacks on her desk. Richter wandered in, blinking. "Sir, they found this taped to the deputy station door." He held up a scrap of paper, damp around the edges. Crude symbols in dark ink. Underneath, a note in shaky block letters. "Watching, always." Silence. I ran my thumb over the words. The symbols matched the oak, the tunnel, the schoolhouse. Someone wanted us to know we weren't alone. I crumpled the paper. "Take these to evidence," I said. "Seal them." I returned to Givens's desk. My eye caught a folder wedged behind the land use maps, yellowed at the edges. It bore no label. I slid it out. Inside, a hand-drawn map of Millbrook County. Roads, rivers, properties. But in the center, over the woods, a circle of symbols carved in black ink. Underneath, here lies the heart. No signature, no date, just the symbols and a crude circle. I closed the folder. Heart in this land. It wasn't myth, it was direction. That night, I drove back to my cabin on County Road 23. The headlights lit the gravel drive, and I thought I saw movement at the tree line. I told myself it was wind, a deer, something normal. Inside, Richter's file sat on the counter, unopened. I left a note. Review these tomorrow. Stand by. I locked the door and poured whiskey into a chipped mug. I sipped it by the window, watching the woods pulse in the darkness. Sleep didn't come. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text message, no number, just a photo attachment. I tapped it open. The image was grainy, taken with a night vision camera, the one we installed at the schoolhouse. The frame showed empty hallways, lockers, desks. Then, at the far end, a figure standing in the doorway, tall, thin, its face tilted as if hearing me breathe. I stared. The timestamp read 2:59 a.m. The generators had been removed. No power there, no sign of trespassers. I felt the whiskey burn my throat, and I handed the mug a violent shake. Liquid sloshed over the rim. I slid the phone across the table. It dimmed to a black screen. Behind it, moonlight raked the cabin floor. Shadows pooled in corners. I heard a soft scraping at the window. Heart thudding, I set down the mug and stood. Each step toward the glass felt like wading through tar. I reached the window. I pressed my face to the cold pane. Outside, beyond the porch light, the woods stood still. No deer, no wind, no rain, only trees. Then I saw it. Slender, stretched, a silhouette between two pines. It didn't move, it didn't blink, it just watched. My breath fogged the glass. I wiped a path with my sleeve. The shape remained. I leaned closer, heart hammering. My reflection wavered beside it, two figures in the dark. It raised one long finger and pointed at me. I jerked back, the window went black. I stood in the silence of the cabin, night pressing in, no radio, no phone, no warmth. Only the whisper of timber settling. I walked to my bedroom door and flipped the light. It flickered, dim, like an exhaled breath. I stepped inside. On my pillow lay a single bone, bleached white, polished smooth. No note, no explanation. I closed the door, locked it, pressed my back against it, and sat in the dark, listening for the soft scrape of nails on wood, knowing it wouldn't stop until it had all of me. The world outside my cabin was silent when I woke. Dawn light hadn't reached the sky yet, only the gray glow of pre-morning. I sat on the edge of the bed, the single bone upturned in my palm, cold and smooth. I turned it over again and again, no answer in its weight or grain. I swallowed hard and rose. Every muscle protested. I needed to finish this. I needed to know. I tucked the bone into my coat pocket and grabbed my flashlight, my pistol, my keys. Richter met me at the cruiser, eyes hollow to match my own. He didn't ask where we were going. We both knew. The road to the heart ran narrow between fields and groves of elm, dawn's mist clinging to tall grass. The symbols carved into the oak stood out in the gloom, dark lines bleeding sap. I passed without a word, steering toward the buried shaft beneath that gnarled trunk. The steel plates we'd welded shut were gone, torn free, warped. Concrete shards scattered on the ground like crushed bone. Richter stopped the engine. We climbed out and approached. My flashlight showed claw marks gouged deep into the metal. Whoever reopened this had strength or desperation. I knelt and traced the scratches. They matched the symbols, the same curved arcs and jagged strokes. A tremor ran through me, but I forced my voice steady. "Let's go down." Richter swallowed. "Sir, maybe we should call it in." I shook my head. "Too late." I climbed into the shaft first, ropes absorbing my weight. The wet rungs shivered underfoot. My bone rattled in my pocket. I prayed it meant something I could read. At the bottom, the beam cut a corridor of dripping stone. The air smelled of rot and diesel from the old generator. We passed sacks of bones, marked and tagged, a macabre archive. Bones of hikers, students, farmers, friends, never found, now found again. I felt their eyes on me. We reached the chamber. The stone table stood bare. Symbols scored deep into the rock like scars. I placed my flashlight on its edge and dug into my pocket. On the bone, small scratches formed, matching the symbols on the walls. I held it against the carvings. They aligned. A message in 3 strokes, 17, 12, 6. I rattled my heart, voice tight. Coordinates, depths, dates. Richter's breath came fast. "What is it?" Before I could answer, the dark shifted. A slender shape emerged from the shadows. No eyes, just hollows, no flesh. Just stretched skin and bone. It held something in its hand, a photograph, worn and cracked. The beam caught it. My face, older, grayer, smiling as I held up this same bone in my cabin. Only in the picture my eyes were younger, untroubled. The date scrawled on the back, June 13th, 1991. My heart stopped. I, an image of myself, standing with the bone in hand, taken the day after that first patrol when Wells disappeared, taken yesterday. I shoved the photo from me. It fluttered to the floor. I stepped back, tripped over a rib, caught myself on the table. The shadow slipped forward. Richter squeezed my shoulder. "Sheriff." The shape tilted its head. A high, halting click sounded, like stone scraping stone. It lifted a bony finger and traced one of the symbols on the wall, then another. It paused at the third. It tapped the floor, slow, drip, 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 like a broken metronome. My blood pounded in my ears. I pressed my back to the far wall. Richter reached for his radio, but the static roared like a choir of whispers. We were cut off, alone. No sound but that dripping echo. The shape stepped closer. It opened its mouth, no words, only the hiss of distant wind, of water under rock, of voices that never left. It reached into its chest. No flesh to pull, only bone, and held out a heart carved from wood. Smooth, stained red, the symbols ringed it. I stared. I knew then that I had always been here, that this land had watched me from the first patrol, from every missing person, from every abandoned car. I pressed a hand to my chest and felt nothing but hollow. Richter shouted. I snapped back. The figure cradled the wooden heart and turned. It walked through the wall, no impact, no crumble, just faded into the darkness beyond. The radio crackled alive. "Sheriff Tanner, do you copy?" It was dispatch. A new car reported at the Miller farm, lights on. I reached upward, voice raw. "Copy. I'm on my way." We climbed back up. I lifted the shaft grate and sealed it with my own hands, pouring concrete side by side with Richter. We hammered the last bolt tight. When it set, I drew a line in the wet cement with my finger, 3 symbols. Later, I filed the logs, delivered the evidence, reported the cables cut, the generators gone. I told them the chamber was empty. No shape, no heart, no photograph. Back at the cabin, I placed the wooden heart on my mantel beside the bone. The final count, 2 hearts, one of bone and one of wood, side by side. each carved with the symbols of the Watcher. I poured a glass of whiskey, raised it to the night, took a slow sip. The symbols in the window frame glowed in the moonlight. I whispered, "I know where you live." And the silence whispered back, "The heart was never yours." I eased the cruiser onto the gravel road behind the gas station, the engine's hum fading into the steady drip of rain on the roof. My boots hit the slick stones, each step sounding too loud. I checked the radio, nothing but static cutting in and out. No backup for miles. I flicked off the flashlight for a moment, letting my eyes adjust. The world narrowed to wet air and the scent of diesel and pines. The call had been a door ajar at the closed station, motion lights cycling on and off like a heartbeat. The attendant lived up the road, 2 miles of dark highway, no shoulder lights. I'd passed that stretch a dozen times. Always the same. Empty fields, broken fences, the edge of forest eating the mile markers. Tonight, I felt it breathing. The door swung open with a groan. Inside, the scent of stale coffee and motor oil. The main register light flickered. I swept the beam across the aisles. Cans of beans, dusty snacks, half-empty shelves. Nothing moved, no footprints other than mine. The lights snapped off. I stood in darkness, listening. Rain drummed on the corrugated roof. Then silence thicker than the night outside. Outside again, I circled the building. The motion light stuttered, washing the perimeter in white. I felt watched. I paused near the back door, gloves damp. I focused on the wet grass and the faint path leading toward the woods. Someone had passed here. Maybe a kid dared each other to sneak in. Maybe an animal set off the sensor. I stepped onto the path, mud sucking at my heel. Halfway to the trees, I slowed. The rain dimmed. I heard a single bark in the distance. A dog, then nothing. No echo, no follow-up, just the rain. I raised the flashlight. The beam trembled across trunks. No eyes, no shapes. I counted paces, 30, 40. Then the beam landed on the camera fixed to a cedar. The lens coated in mud. The housing fresh, too fresh. I knelt and pried it loose. The screen blinked low battery, 1 clip. A single timestamp, 003, 2 nights ago. I swiped memory, nothing but static. I slid the card into my pocket and stalked back to the cruiser. I felt colder. A small dread lodged behind my ribs. I told dispatch I was secure. I left the sensor logs for morning. I climbed back in. The seat was cold. I thought of the call at the farmhouse. Just up the road, a midnight check-in, no answer on callback. They wanted a deputy to confirm their place was still standing. I told dispatch I'd swing by. It felt too easy, but why not? The cruiser's tires hissed on wet asphalt. I drove roughly 2 miles to the old Walker place, long since abandoned. The paint peeled like dried skin. The porch sagged. I clicked on the lights, all dark. I stepped from the cruiser into mud. The rain lessened to a mist. I walked the pathway to the porch. Rotten wood creaked underfoot. I raised my flashlight to the front door, still closed. No sign of forced entry, only flipped open, as if someone stepped inside then forgot. I knocked. Nothing. I tapped the door, echoed hollow. I pulled my radio. "Deputy Collins, you copy." My voice sounded thin, static. I tapped again, nothing. I told dispatch I'd check inside. I hesitated in the doorway. The air smelled of mold and old smoke. I cleared my throat and stepped into the dark. The beam hit the living room. Chairs tipped, newspapers scattered. The old lantern on the table still faintly lit, battery. Rain leaked through the ceiling, soaking the rug. I moved quietly, sweeping the rooms. Kitchen, bedrooms, attic, nothing. No footprints besides mine, no flicker, no shape. I stood in the hall, chest tight. I remembered the barn door left open on another call, same uneasy wait, all clear, and the moment I turned away, I sensed something shifting behind me. I spun. Empty hall, my breath caught. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I saw wet footprints leading back toward the living room, too small for my size. Not Collins's, not mine. I knelt and shone the light. 5 prints spaced evenly, mud slipping down through cracked floorboards. They stopped at the kitchen doorway. I stood, heart pounding. I moved toward the prints. Each step heavier than the last. The kitchen. Counter scattered with dishes half washed, water dripping from a cracked sink. I traced the prints to the back door. It was open now. The cold night air brushed my cheek. The mist curled around my ankles in the beam. I felt the hair on my neck rise. I peered into the yard. Empty field, then tree line. Deeper darkness beyond my lights. A rustle. I swept the beam. Nothing. I said a prayer I didn't believe. I closed the door. I locked it. I told dispatch I'd found nothing, though I felt I'd found too much. I trudged back to the cruiser through the mud that now clung to my boots. I slammed the door and fired up the engine. The radio crackled once, then died. I pressed the button, static. I pulled the card from my pocket. It was blank again. I drove off. The fields receded. The gas station signs gleamed mile markers. I wiped rain from the windshield. My name echoed in the cab. Deputy Smith, did you copy? I told them I'd be back at the station, no emergency. I clicked the mic off. I watched the dark road ahead, afraid to look behind. I kept the headlights on high, the wipers scraping. The night was endless. I passed that farmhouse again, no lights, no life. I thought about the dog that barked once. I thought about the camera. I thought about the prints. I thought about nothing. Silence settled in my chest. I let the cruiser roll until I reached the station yard. I cut the engine, I sat, I listened to the rain, to the drip of water from my coat. I waited. I knew the night wasn't over. I knew it would start again at midnight. And I knew I'd go back out, boots on gravel, flashlight in hand, ready for nothing, and for everything that might follow. The cruiser sat dark in the lot, rain dripping from the hood. I killed the engine and let the silence fill the cab. My chest felt hollow. I should have gone home. I should have slept. But by 10 minutes past midnight, the radio crackled to life. Smith, we've got a vehicle stopped on County Road 19. Lights on, no plate visible. Can you check it? I sighed and lifted myself out of the seat. My boots found the puddles in the yard as I walked around the cruiser. The wet air pressed on me like a weight. I flicked the flashlight on and pocketed the camera card from earlier. It didn't make sense, but I carried it anyway. I pulled onto County Road 19. Mud spattered the sides of the cruiser. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the clouds were low and heavy. I passed the grain elevator. Dark now, its windows blackened. The road stretched past empty fields. I clicked on the overhead lights. Up ahead, a car sat on the shoulder, engine off, headlights on. I eased the cruiser closer. The car was an older sedan, burgundy paint dulled by dirt. Its doors were locked. No sign of driver. The engine warmth had steamed the windows. I tapped the horn twice. Nothing. I stepped out. My boots sank into soft ground. I carried the flashlight low. I circled the car. No footprints in the mud beside it. No marks on the tires. Just the reflection of the light on the hood. I crouched and checked the plate. Absent. I placed my hand on the roof. It was warm. The engine must have been running until recently. I grabbed the handle and yanked the door. Locked. I drew the window scraper from my pocket and tapped the glass. It cracked, but nothing moved inside. I went to the passenger side and did the same. Only darkness, no shape. I returned to the driver's door and radioed dispatch. Copy that. I've got an unoccupied vehicle. Looks fine. No plate. I'll run the VIN. I paused. I need entry. No harm in a quick look. I broke the passenger window. Glass sprayed inward. I ducked my head. Shards bit at my jacket. I kicked the panel away. I climbed in. The seatbelt was fastened. Keys were on the floor. I unbuckled it and let it drop. I switched the overhead light on. The interior was pristine, too clean. Leather seats, no trash, no personal items. The glove box was locked. The center console flicked open with a push. Papers inside. A single crumpled note reading, "I'll be back." I took a photo with my phone. The note was folded, edges worn. I unfolded it. Nothing else. No date, no name. Just those 3 words. I felt the hair on my arms rise. I checked the back seat. Empty. No sign of struggle, no blood, no scent. Just the faint odor of fabric softener. I scratched my head. I leaned forward to take the VIN from the dashboard. My flashlight beam quivered. Then I heard it. A soft click behind me. I spun. The driver's door was shut. The latch clicked into place. My breath caught. I froze. My heart thrummed in my ears. I swept the beam. The back seat was empty. The front passenger seat was empty. No silhouette. I reached for the handle. I pulled hard. Locked. I tapped the lock button. No response. I slammed my fist. Nothing. "Dispatch," I whispered into the radio. "I'm locked in the vehicle. Someone close the door." Static. No answer. I stood and struck the window scraper against the glass again. Cracks spidered. The latch clicked once more. I stopped. I listened. The drizzle outside was soft. Then a creak from the trunk. I drew my service pistol and freed the magazine. I kept the light on low. The creak sounded again, slow, measured, in time with my pulse. I swung the beam to the back window. The trunk seam glowed. The latch clicked. I radioed dispatch again. "I need assistance. Trunk is opening." My voice trembled. A mechanical groan. The trunk lid rose. I froze. The rain slid in, soaking my ankles. The flashlight caught the trunk's interior. Empty. No tire, no jack, no cables, just darkness. I stepped back. My hand pressed against the crackling glass. My reflection stared back. Eyes wide, mouth set. I holstered the pistol. I let the beam play over the dash. I counted to 10. Then I reached down and tapped the button for the overhead lamp. Nothing. I pressed it again. Nothing. I pried the passenger door. It swung open with a hiss of rain. I stumbled out. The mud sucked at my boots. I looked at the sedan, headlights still on, trunk open, no one in sight. I dashed to my cruiser and grabbed the gate key from the glove box, a spare. I raced back to the sedan. I crouched and slid the key into the driver's door. It clicked. I opened it. The heat from the interior hit my face. I reached in and hit the unlock button. The passenger door swung open. I backed away. I checked the front seat again. Nothing. I slid in and hit the ignition. The engine roared. I slammed it into drive and peeled off. My heart pounded. My clothes wet. My radio remained dead. I floored it down County Road 19. The headlights cut through the mist. I looked in the rearview mirror. No chasing lights, no shadow, just the empty road. I called dispatch on my cell. No answer. I realized I hadn't heard a bark. No dog, no radio, no voice, only the engine and the rain. I pulled into the station yard. I cut the engine. I sat for a long time. I stared at the steering wheel. My hands trembled. I blinked and rubbed my eyes. I tried the radio. Static. I knew I'd have to file a report. An empty car, locked doors, moving trunk, no driver. I knew they'd send someone, but I'd have to leave. I'd have to step back outside. I'd have to face that empty field again. I stood and climbed out. The rain had stopped. The mist clung low. The lot was empty. I clicked off the flashlight. I walked down the steps. Gravel crunched underfoot. On the ground near the passenger door of the cruiser were wet footprints, small, bare, leading toward the barns at the back of the lot. I froze. I shone the beam. The prints ended at the barn door. It was closed. No light inside. I swallowed. I turned for the station doors. I thought I heard quiet breathing behind me. I dared a glance. Nothing. I closed my eyes. The note from the sedan fluttered in my mind. I'll be back. I walked inside and locked the door behind me. My back pressed against the wood. I exhaled. I let my eyes adjust. My radio blinked once on the shelf. A single green light. Then it went dark. I looked around. Empty station, empty field, empty sky, and I knew it wasn't over. I slid the key into the lock and turned it twice. The door clicked shut behind me. My back pressed to the wood. My heart pounded so hard I thought the walls might shudder. The station was silent. Rain still dripped outside somewhere. I recognized the hush, the one that comes when the world holds its breath. I took a step into the main room. My boots echoed on the linoleum. The fluorescent lights overhead sputtered once, then steadied. I reached for my radio again. The green light was gone. Dead. I pressed my palm against the speaker. Nothing. I crouched and tested the handset cord, intact. I stood. I wiped sweat from my brow. I felt watched. I walked to the evidence locker. The steel door loomed. I punched the code. It sprung open. Inside, the shelves held case files and evidence bags. Everything I'd cataloged that night. I looked at the bag from the sedan. Inside was the folded note. I'll be back. I took it out and unfolded it again. No new marks. I placed it on the counter and looked around. Nothing moved. No stray paper. No sign of recent entry. Yet I knew someone had been here after me. I slid a shallow drawer under the desk. It yielded a dusty motion alarm designed for warehouses. I flipped it on. The red LED pulsed once, then died. Battery drained, as if I'd just checked it out. I felt along the desk edge. A drop of rain on the floor. The window above was cracked. I peered out. The yard was empty. No storm, no headlights. The barn door across the lot was closed now. The footprints, small, bare, had to have led there, then here, then vanished. I forced my hand to steady as I walked toward the back office. Photos of missing persons and crime scenes hung on the walls. I recognized the faces. The woman in the shallow grave. The deputies we lost track of. I scanned each image, running my finger along the glass. None of them looked back. None had moved. I knelt and shone my flashlight on the baseboard trim. Tiny scuffs. Fresh. Footprints here too. I crouched and put my ear to the wood. A faint scraping, like nails or claws jerking against metal. I straightened and backed away. My pistol hand shook. A soft click came from behind me. The front door unlocked itself. The bolt slid free. My breath caught. I spun. The door stood ajar. Light from the hall leaked in, weak, yellow. I should have investigated. I should have called for backup, but I couldn't. My legs refused. The hall light dimmed. The door swung closed on its own. I heard a final click. My own key turned in the lock. I swallowed. I reached out. I gripped the doorknob. It was cold. I yanked. Locked again. I turned and ran to the window. I jammed my fingers into the gap and pushed. The frame held. I kicked at it. A crack appeared. I wedged my shoulder. The glass shattered inward. I tumbled to the floor. Papers scattered. The broken window looked out over the parking area, the barn, the empty field beyond. I scrambled up and grabbed the pistol. My flashlight fell. I caught it on the second bounce. The beam cut across the lot. The barn door stood wide now, a sliver of darkness inside. The station lights didn't reach it. I saw nothing new, and yet I felt a presence just beyond. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. When I opened them, I saw the note from the sedan on the desk behind me. I hadn't placed it there. It lay unfolded, edges straight, the handwriting clear. Midnight. No other words. My radio buzzed in my jacket pocket. I fumbled it out. The screen read, "Unknown caller." I pressed answer, static, then a soft inhalation, too close. I lifted the phone. Nothing but black glass. I set it down. It rang again. I ignored it. The station clock ticked to 11:59, 1 minute to midnight. I moved toward the front door. I reached for the knob. It clicked open. I froze. The hall light flickered on. I stepped through. The hallway was empty. My boots squeaked. I passed the locker room. Empty benches, wet coats hung on the hooks. I passed the dispatch office. Monitors dark. Chairs tipped over. I passed the evidence room. Full, but everything felt wrong. I reached the front lobby. Outside the glass doors, I saw my own reflection. I leaned toward it. The rain on the glass muted the lot lights. I could just make out the barn door behind me. Open. The dark inside seemed to breathe. I straightened and turned the handle. There, laid across the lobby floor, was my badge and my hat, damp from rain. My name stamped on each. No one else could have placed them. Yet they lay there plainly, as if waiting. I knelt and picked up the badge. My name glistened. S. Smith. I heard a footstep to my left. Software deliberate. I raised my pistol. The beam caught a shape slipping between the dispatch desk and the wall. A tall shadow. No face, no features. Just a dark silhouette. It froze. I whispered, "I know you're there." The silhouette tilted its head. There was a slow rustle of clothing. A breath, shallow and ragged. The creature, or person, stepped into the beam for a fraction of a second. I saw a pale hand, long fingers. The arm ended in a coat sleeve that matched the sheriff's uniform I wore. I blinked. It vanished. I never saw it move. One moment it stood blocking the exit. The next, gone. I holstered my pistol. The midnight chime skipped in my mind. I stepped forward and reached for the front door again. I pushed it open. Cold air hit me. The barn's dark mouth yawned at the far end of the lot. No figure waited there, no car, only the empty field stretching under a low cloud. I stepped outside. My boots sank into mud. I shone my light at the open lobby door. It stood silent. My breath hung in the beam. I heard the radio buzz in the cruiser behind me. I spun and saw the overhead dome lit. The engine idling. The door cracked open just enough for someone to slip inside. I drew closer, heart hammering. The cruiser light went out. I froze. Then I saw it. My own shape reflected in the glass. Standing by the driver's seat, head bowed, hands folded in the lap. But I hadn't climbed in. I hadn't moved. I whispered my own name, and then the figure lifted its head. I staggered back. It smiled. A hollow, gentle smile. It tipped its hat. And in that moment I understood I was already inside. The heavy wooden door thudded shut behind me. I hardly felt it. My boots squelched against the mud as I stood under the low-hanging clouds, the barn yawning open at the far end of the lot. The cruiser's engine hummed behind me, idling. My flashlight beam trembled across the cracked asphalt and overgrown gravel. The station's lights had gone dark in the storm. Only the barn's empty maw seemed alive in the gloom. I raised my pistol, finger off the trigger. The field beyond lay empty, but I knew better than to trust open space. I could feel the weight of eyes on me, calm, patient. I swallowed. My throat was dry. I took a step toward the barn. My boots sank into soft mud. I steadied myself and clicked on the flashlight again. The beam shuddered across broken boards and rusted farm tools lying in the doorway. I inhaled, tasting damp earth. The barn smelled of hay and rot. I climbed the threshold, careful not to trip over a stray plank. The beam cut a path through darkness. I saw rows of wooden stalls, empty, but for a few scattered straw bales. The air was cool, humid. My breath came out in puffs. I shone the light down the central aisle. It stretched far back, deeper than I remembered from the daytime checks. The far wall was a patchwork of faded posters and bulletins, missing person flyers, mom and pop advertisements, church notices, none newer than 10 years old. I moved forward. Each step was muffled by straw. The sole of my boot brushed something soft in the hay. I knelt and pushed it aside. A soggy photograph. 2 children posing in front of a birthday cake. The edges were curled and stained. I turned it over. No names, no date. Just the faint imprint of a sheriff's department seal. My heart stuttered. I stood and slipped the photo into my pocket. I pressed my back against a stall wall and listened. Nothing but the storm circling outside. I advanced to the center of the barn. My light fell on a long workbench against the north wall. On it lay an assortment of tools, wrenches, screwdrivers, metal shears, all meticulously arranged. Their metal surfaces gleamed cold. I leaned in, breath shallow, and recognized the engraving on one pair of shears. S. Smith, Property Room. The hair on my arms prickled. My own equipment, stolen from evidence. I recalled the journals I'd found months ago, lists of every piece of gear Owens had taken from department lockers across 4 states. Equipment he'd collected like trophies. And now, here it was, laid out for me to find. I heard a metallic click behind me. I spun and swept the beam across the far corner. Shadows shifted. I saw the outline of a figure standing in the gloom, tall, broad shoulders, head low. The flashlight trembled against the wood. I cursed under my breath and tightened my grip on the pistol. The figure didn't move, just watched. I swallowed and spoke without thinking. "What do you want?" Silence. Then a voice, hoarse, calm. "You left something behind." The words slid through the darkness. I stepped forward. "Who are you?" My voice cracked. The figure stayed still. I raised the pistol. "Show yourself." The figure didn't step into the light. Instead, it released a slow breath, wet, ragged. The beam caught its sleeve, the dark jacket of a sheriff's deputy. My deputy, my own uniform. A realization struck like a blow. It wasn't Richards Owens here. It wasn't some stranger. It was me. A version of me shaped by fear and isolation. I lowered the pistol. My voice was raw. "This isn't real." I shook my head. "I'm alone." The figure answered with a chuckle, low, hollow. "You're never alone." The voice echoed off the rafters. I stared at the darkness. Doubt twisted in my gut. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the photo of the children. I lifted it to the light. The 2 kids stared back. Familiar faces blurred by water damage. I blinked. My own children. A memory shattered the haze. The last time I'd seen them at the fairgrounds 5 years ago. A call came in. A chase. I'd never returned. They'd left without me. The guilt was an old ache I carried, tucked away beneath the uniform. Now that ache flared, raw and burning. I dropped the photo. It fluttered at my feet. I looked up. The figure's outline shifted. It pointed a finger at me. The beam swept across the barn wall. I saw scribbled words. "You never come back." My breath hitched. The figure's head bowed. It took a step forward. I expected flesh and bone. Instead, the air itself seemed to buckle, like a heat shimmer. The outline dissolved, melting into the barn's gloom. Then the overhead door thundered shut behind me. I spun, heart in my throat. The dull daylight that seeped through cracks vanished. I was swallowed by darkness. I fumbled for my radio. Dead. I fished out my phone. It glowed briefly, then died. I hammered the barn door with my fist. Wood splintered beneath metal. I shouted for help, but my voice was consumed by silence. My flashlight flickered. I clicked it off. In the pitch, I crouched low and pressed my back to the wood. My breath came in short bursts. Sweat beaded on my brow. I felt the floor shift beneath me, like a heartbeat. The barn groaned. A distant sound, boots on straw, not my boots. Something pacing, waiting. The flashlight clicked on of its own accord. The beam carved a path to the back wall. There, painted in the peeling red of old barn paint, were words that hadn't been there moments ago. "Stay with me." The letters dripped, as if written in fresh blood. I swallowed hard. My pistol felt heavy in my hand. My heart thundered. I pressed my back against the stall beside me, my shoulder against the rough wood. My head pounded. The pacing continued, circling, never stopping. Every stomp was synchronized with my pulse. I found the courage to whisper, "I'm sorry." Silence. Then a low sigh behind me. I could feel warm air on my neck. I dared not turn. The second footstep stamped directly across from me. The beam illuminated the vapor of breath in the cold air. A hand, my hand, dropped a small wrapped package at my feet. I stared at the brown paper and twine. My name scrawled in neat script, Sheriff S. Smith. I kicked it away. It tumbled into a pool of straw. I stepped back, wounded pride. The footsteps slowed, a single beat. Then they stopped. I held my breath. In the stillness, I heard it, the faintest whisper of my own voice, echoing off the rafters. "I'll be back." An agony of panic sliced through me. The barn door behind me banged open. Rain splashed through the crack. Moonlight spilled onto the mud. The pacing resumed, but faster, erratic, frantic. I heard the beat of my own heart competing with some other rhythm in the dark. I swung the flashlight to the barn entrance. The mud-glazed fields lay empty. No silhouette, no shape. Only the night wind tearing at my uniform. I wondered if the thing here was real or the hollow reflection of my own broken soul. The radio in my jacket clicked on, static spitting. I coughed into it. "Dispatch?" "Need." The static swallowed my words. Then dispatch, calm but strained. "Deputy Smith? Are you there?" I blinked. The barn lights flickered back on, weak, fluorescent. I squinted at the radio. It lay in my lap, its cord tangled in straw. My pistol lay beside it, barrel slick with sweat. The black package remained at my feet. Outside, the barn door sagged open. The cruiser's overhead lights glowed faintly. Dispatch said, "We've been calling. You left your radio on. We thought you were on a break. You mean you're in the station." My throat tightened. I tried to speak, but only static emerged. Dispatch continued, "Sir, we have units coming, multiple. Hang tight." I exhaled slowly. The pacing stopped. Silence fell, heavy as iron. I picked up the package. With trembling hands, I untied the twine. Inside was a single dog-eared photograph of me, from the station cookout, smiling at a neighbor. A line was scratched across my face, clean and decisive. No words. My radio crackled again. I clicked the button. My voice was a ragged whisper. "I'm here. I see it." There was a long pause. Then dispatch said softly, "Hang on, deputy." I pressed my back against the wall. The field outside was silent. The storm had passed. The night felt hollow. I stared at the photograph in my hand, the black scratches carving away the man I'd been. And as I sat in that barn, waiting for help that would come too late, I realized I was never really inside.